Hi guys, my name is Jake Whidden and I work here at Studycat, and we're doing a session today on using technology in young learner classes and a big focus on the rise of Edtech. Most of my sessions are quite focused on some practical ideas. I think this session will be more about talking about the ideas of what's happening with technology in the classroom, but hopefully you guys can interact with me. And if you want to type and stuff, I can read out what you're saying and share with the whole group. So let's get started. So today we're going to look at 4 things. We're going to look at what is technology. I think we say it a lot, but we're going to define it. We're going to have a short history lesson. We're going to look at technology and language learning and some final tips for you. I think it'll be about 45 to 50 minutes. And every time you've got questions, no worries, just ask me, and hopefully you'll be answering some questions as well. So let's define technology. So in a classroom context, what is technology? Just anything you want to type. There's only 7 of us, so it's a quite small group. Well, there's only 6 of us, I think. Oh, we got one more. Someone just joined. So what is technology? Any answer? You can type something. Anything? Nothing? Someone type something? Okay. Oh, we'll move on. Go, Alison. Awesome. I think the more you type, the more we can interact. Thank you, Alison. Let's see what Alison's going to say. Yeah, right. Radio, computer, things like this, right? What do we have? IT stuff. Cool. Nice. Okay. So I think the simple definition of technology is just the tools we use. That's the definition we say for a technology, okay? But let's go on a bit further. So what tech do you currently have in your classroom? What access do you guys have? I'm very interested to know. Do you have, okay, I'm just going to go through, guys. So do you guys have, I mean, I'm sure you have blackboards, right? Or a whiteboard. Does everyone have a whiteboard? Yes? Let's go on to the next one. Can anyone tell me, what's this one? Is this something that people still have in their classroom? What is it? Uh-huh. Oh, thank you, Helen. Smart boards, and you have tablets. Great. So I hope to hear more from you. I really want to know what else you... and then guys in Russia, tell me, what's this one? Yes, a tape recorder. I'm old enough to still remember the tape recorder and having to press play, stop, rewind, go back, and then remember the listening. And it was really inconvenient. What about this one? Who can tell me what this one is? Alison, George, go for it. What about Olga? Olga, can you still hear us there? Tamara? What's this one, guys? Okay, it's an overhead projector. Basically, you put a film on here, on the screen. You know, you put something on here, and it projects up here onto a screen, right? Yeah, good, Alison. What about this one? Is anyone old enough to remember what this is? I wonder if there's a delay today. Is anyone old enough to remember this? Yeah, VH. Thank you. Tamara, you can remember. Oh, you missed them? I don't know. The feeling of putting them in and going clunk was kind of cool, I have to admit. I wonder if people still use these anywhere in the world. Just going to see what Tamara's going to say, and then I'll click on to the next. Oh, Alison, what are you going to say? Everyone's typing, but nothing's coming up. Yeah, okay, Alison, classic. Cool. And then the other thing that happened when I started teaching 15, 16 years ago, it was really flipping over from tape decks to CD players, and this was going to revolutionize teaching. To be honest, it didn't revolutionize teaching, and I think I'm trying to show you a point here, right? What about, and then obviously TVs came into the classroom, and that was going to revolutionize teaching, but really it just was another way to present input, you know, present target language. Then the PC came into the classroom. It was going to change language teaching, but really what it did was just provide another way to put up input. You still need a teacher there, right? I'm wondering, does anyone have this in their classroom at the moment? I'm just, out of all of you now, who has IWBs in the classroom? Nope. Cool. Oh, you don't? Okay. That's interesting. I think a lot of schools in China now probably have them, and I'm wondering in Russia, if any of the Russians, do you use IWBs or not really? Nope. Okay, let's continue. I'm sure you might have these in the classroom then, yes? Just trying to get an idea of what everyone has access to. Okay, so can anyone tell me what they think this is? This is a little bit different than the rest of the things I've shown you. I'm just interested to know if anyone knows what it is. What do you think this is? Can anyone guess? Ah, Helen, thank you. Not VR. This one is VR. The next one I think I put on here was VR. It's coming up. Yeah, right. So this is basically AR, right? It's AR as in augmented reality. We'll show you a bit more later. But, you know, a lot of people think this is going to change the experience in the classroom. So the group I had this morning, a few people have already started doing this. Companies like Disney, EF, a few publishers are doing it, but not a lot. We also have, you know, it's basically just enhancing real world content. So augmented reality is enhancing the real world. Virtual reality is creating a new world, right? So I don't think anyone has these in the classrooms yet, but I think in the future that we'll see, especially augmented reality with our textbooks, where kids yeah, you would love it. Let's have a look at it later, and I wonder if it's as good as we think it is, or maybe it's amazing. So I just want to talk to you guys about this idea of hardware versus, dinosaur AR. Oh, cool. All right, I'm just going to write that one down. Yeah, can you send the link to that if you find it, Helen? Maybe at the end of this? I'm really interested to see that. So guys, let's talk about this idea of hardware versus software. With educational technology over years and technology in the classroom, it's always been hardware, new things coming that were going to change teaching forever, but didn't really change. The biggest thing we've seen change in the last 4 or 5 years is we now have software, and software in many, many different ways. So that's kind of the theme of what we're talking about today, that hardware didn't change teaching, but software might change teaching, okay? Let's continue. So what is Edtech? Well, I'm going to answer for you just to save you typing. We know it's educational technology, right? And what's interesting about Edtech is it used to always be spelt with a capital, but now I've noticed people are just using it as a noun, which means it's once a word just becomes a noun and it's not a proper noun anymore, we know it's starting to be accepted into the teaching discourse. So Edtech refers to software designed to enhance teacher-led learning in classrooms and improve students' education outcomes. But I don't agree with this, because this is the issue. I don't think it needs to be teacher-led, and this is going to be the biggest change, I think, in language teaching that we've seen in the last 100 years. I prefer this definition. Edtech is software designed to enhance and improve students' education outcomes. And what's interesting about Edtech is that it does change the role of the teacher, and that's what we're going to be showing, I hope. So what tech do your students have at home? What access do they have at home? I'm really interested to know. What tech do your students have at home, guys? If you can type it in. Cool. No clue, Alison? Yeah, Helen, I'm almost guaranteed. So you're in China. Yeah, daddy's phone. Exactly. But there's a point I want to make about this today. And guys, the guys in Russia, can you tell me what they have in Russia? Because it's good for us to see. Yeah, phones, right? And Tamara, what were you going to say? Yeah, CD, DVD. That's two big ones, right? That we kind of forget already existed in the home. I think the biggest thing that we've seen change for all of our students, and I'm sure in Russia as well, is access to mobile devices. How many times a day does a child want to take the phone from the parent, right, and play something? How much time does the parent spend on the phone, right, texting or looking at their social media or something? So what we need to be realized as teachers is our students now have access to technology that they've never had before. And that means they have access to apps and software that they've never had before, which means that we can increase the amount of language learning happening on a daily basis. We can now connect learning from the home to the classroom. This is not something we can really do with a DVD or a CD, but we can definitely do it with a mobile phone or an app or a tablet. So let's go for a history lesson. I'm just going to talk now so you can just watch this nice history lesson and I'll share it out with you later. So I think for the first time in 100 years, we have a real opportunity to change education and language learning. So let's have a look here. This is back in the 1920s. We had just a desk. That was all we had. And then in 1923 came the very first radios into the classroom. And everyone thought, this is going to change the way teachers teach. They'll be able to replace the teacher and just have a radio. But it didn't, right? Then in the 1930s, we saw projectors and we saw overhead projectors. But what we found was it influenced teaching, it enhanced teaching, but it didn't really take away from the teacher. You still needed the teacher. There was input. And the issue was that it was creating more input in the classroom, not necessarily more learning in the classroom. Then I was surprised to see this in 1939. First TVs appear in an American school. And then the first headphones. Not till the 1960s did we see the first whiteboards. And that's not IWB, that's just normal whiteboards. So quite late. There was televisions in the classroom before the whiteboard. I would say I think whiteboards have helped me teach just for how quickly you can write, etc. What my point about this is that every time new technology came, you can see evidence in newspapers, etc., that it was going to change teaching and, you know, the teacher won't be so important, but it hasn't changed that. The teacher is still central. Then we saw the rise of computers in the classroom, still didn't change that much. Maybe the calculator affected a maths classroom, but that's about it. And really the biggest change really was in this one, I think, is the CD-ROM. The reason why CD-ROM was so important was because it meant you had lots of information in one small place. So it changed the relationship students had with looking for knowledge. Rather than having to go to the library and research 50 books, they could just go to one place, search and find it. So I think that was a huge change, and that was a software change, not a hardware change. And then the next big change was internet, right? Once the internet came, we know now that 99% of American public schools, for example, have internet access, right? Sorry, I was going to say, this has really changed the way that classrooms can work, because you know a teacher now can access anything in the world instantly. If a child asks a question, they can find out something. They can share videos. They can do so much because of this. And then very quickly, what happened was iPads came in, or tablets. Now we're saying that basically 90% of students under the age of 18 in America have access to a mobile or a tablet. And this is the same in China, the same in the Middle East. We know in Russia, I think it's like 70% of people have access to these things. So what that does is it changes the way learning can happen. And what we think that will lead to, and I just spent a week at Edtech X London, and the big things that people were talking about were adaptive learning. So adaptive learning is where when a student gets something wrong, it then knows what they got wrong and then tries to change the content to make sure that they see that language again, right? So the teacher doesn't have to be there for that. And then that's what we also call personalized learning. We're seeing augmented reality, which we'll look at again, game-based learning, machine learning, learning data, lots of data coming out to help people learn, and AI. So that's kind of like a history. What you'll notice is that the big changes in the future are not hardware, they're all software. People aren't trying to invent new cool toys anymore. They're trying to invent new cool software to change the way we learn. And really, it will all be on mobiles and on tablets. So this will happen, as I said, apps and online. It will be software. Let's continue. So technology and language learning, we're going to talk about three things for you: artificial intelligence, AR, and language learning. Let's have a look. So this is augmented reality, and augmented reality means it changes the real world. So augmented reality is bringing environments alive for kids. It could be a big game changer for textbooks. Now, when I started teaching, textbooks were central to teaching. And do you all use textbooks now in your classes? Yes? Cool. Right. Well, very interestingly, guys, I went to the Beijing International Book Fair. I don't know if you've been, but it's the biggest book fair in Asia. And all the publishers were still trying to push books, 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 books. But we know that kids go home and use technology, right? So they're learning in other ways. And publishers are shrinking very quickly. So I think companies that bring in things like AR in the books or QR codes where they can scan things and things happen, it's going to change the way the textbook is in the classroom. The textbook will go from being a very stagnant thing and very static to a very active thing. Oh, Helen. And I know companies like EF and Disney, for example, are really developing this type of bringing textbooks to life. It also means that you'll be able to bring flashcards to life, so rather than just having the flashcard. The problem is, of course, then you're not going to assume that the students will all bring a phone to class and just be staring at life through an iPad. That wouldn't be very good at all. So some of the issues with augmented reality is that it can really enhance learning, but it can also be detrimental if we're just staring at the screen the whole time. One thing I do like with augmented reality is the idea of you could bring in, if you know what CLIL is, but content language integrated learning, that if you have a CLIL class and you want to show some really cool other content, the augmented reality and having something that they can build and do, and then the instructions are coming up on the iPad, for example, really adds to that type of class and language learning. The other big thing is museums now, that you'll be able to hold up your iPad, walk around in the classroom, and it will be an actual map of the Louvre or in Paris, or the Natural History Museum in the UK. So it means people living in South Africa can be going to the Natural History Museum in the UK without having to leave their classroom. Now, I think that's exciting for language learning and young learners, being able to take them on an adventure, having little groups of kids walking around, seeing what's happening at a real museum, but not having to leave the classroom. I'm interested what Helen is typing. In our school, we're using, oh, cool, eFuture products. They provide apps, websites, online testing, smartboard. Nice. So Helen, what's the name of is the name of the company eFuture? Yeah, cool. I'm going to look that up after. And I think that the good thing about today is just sharing some of the ideas, like some of the ones that people are using. So I'm going to look up eFuture after, and I recommend we all do. Another really cool company I've noticed becoming bigger at the moment is Osmo. Osmo, I can't type very well. I should just write it in the chat box. Osmo. And what they do is have tech and tangible. And the idea is what you're doing here on the table affects what's happening on the screen, so they can manipulate things. So it's really cool for kids that like to pick up things and move it around. Yeah, so they have a lot of quite cheap things you can download, and you buy this little thing, and then you could take that in the classroom, and then they do spelling, or they can do putting words together. It's a really simple one. Look, I'm not connected to Osmo at all, but I think it's an interesting company. And then, of course, virtual reality in the classroom. I can't see this happening very quickly. It's expensive, and it's quite clumsy, but it will be amazing when it comes. I mean, you'll be able to just walk through another world, right? And you'll be able to experiment with language. I think that'll be happening a lot in people's homes. They'll have teachers around the world beaming in and just be able to have a class as you sit on the sofa. Another big one is chatbots. If you know, a chatbot is when you ask a question when you're booking something or something. We know now that chatbots have gotten to such a level that you almost think that they'd be a real person. So, and you can actually talk to them now. So we think that kids will be able to speak to the chatbot. You can download a few and try. Like if you have teenage class or maybe 10 years old, you can download the chatbot and get them to program it. Like, what does A say if B says this? The problem with chatbots is that they are just a code, which is if you say A, then I will say B, or I will say B, C, or D. So if you end up saying something that hasn't been programmed in, it doesn't. The chatbots then have to kind of guess what they got to what the answer is going to be. The last one I want to talk about is AI, and then I'll move on to some looking at some apps. AI is artificial intelligence, as we all know. A company called Glossica, which is a sort of a big linguistics company using data, and another company called Sana Labs. So Glossica is a linguistics company, says it's using artificial intelligence to speed up language learning by increasing or decreasing the learner's exposure to patterns dependency. Now that sounds like a very difficult thing that it says, but what it's saying is, though, AI can see the patterns of your learning. So what are you getting wrong? What are you getting right? And then it uses that to speed up the learning process to focus on what you're getting wrong, right? So what happens in a lot of our classes is, I'm sure, is you have to follow a curriculum, but maybe the kids already know it, so we spend time teaching things kids already know. It's also hard to know what everyone is getting wrong, so you don't know if you're actually meeting everyone's exact needs. So their argument is that AI will help, artificial intelligence will help eliminate the traditional method of just doing vocabulary and grammar repetition. So as I said, it's increasing or decreasing the learner's exposure to patterns on their feedback. It's repetition of phrases, patterns, and it eliminates this old school sort of version of just repeat, repeat, repeat. It's finding the patterns, what you're getting wrong or not right, and feeding it back to you, making sure you end up with the right thing. I think that the role of AI will be all about adaptive learning, and adaptive learning is within apps and within software, seeing how a child best learns in which situation. I don't mean learner styles, I just mean what situation. Are they fast or slow on something? Do they like a type of game? And feeding that back so it creates the ultimate learning situation so they can learn more. And that creates a personalized learning journey, and it feeds back to the parents. There's quite a lot that I've been talking about. So I've mentioned this before, but when we have the stages of language learning, we know that our kids need exposure, and they need to notice things and understand things before they can practice. And what we notice in a lot of classes is teachers just go straight into practice mode. What we want to see is kids doing something before class where they're getting that exposure, the input. They're starting to learn it and understand it. And this is where Edtech will change language learning, because we have this access now to see what so kids can access language learning at home. So when they come to class, they're ready to start using language. That's going to be the biggest change in language learning. We won't need to go to class for input anymore, because the input can happen outside of class. So we can truly be teachers inside the class. And then the last one I want to talk about is language learning apps. So do you know any of these language learning apps? Has anyone seen any of these? Have you used a language learning app? Anyone? I know some people use China Ease, I think. Let's see what Helen says. Yeah, Helen. Oh, Olga, you've used Busu. Tell us what do you think of Busu? Basu. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's a big one, but I've never met anyone who's used it. And Duolingo, Helen. Yeah, that's the world's biggest one. And I'm going to do an analysis of Duolingo right now for you. Use them to learn Chinese and you really like, okay, that's great. You use them to learn Chinese and failed. Okay, that's awesome. I think that could just be Chinese, right? So when people are thinking about what apps can I use for my students, also think about like what could you use for yourself. Let's just have a look at a few language learning apps. So yeah, these are the ones you mentioned, right? So we have Duolingo, the biggest one in the world. Actually doesn't make any money yet. It's still free. But what it does is it's got the most users, right? And Busu and Babbel's another one. And then you have these flashcard and memorize ones, so Anki and Memrise, which you guys already mentioned. And then you have these other ones which are like encouraging you to talk to other people. But the problem with these ones is we wouldn't really want our kids on here because we don't want to, you know, be exposing them to the dangers of social media chat. So I'm just going to show you guys a model that I've put together, like a rubric for how you can judge whether you think an app is very valuable. Now, there's so much research now about are apps actually learning? And the big question is going to be about efficacy. Is everyone's making an app, but do they work? So here are I've got 7 things that I've come up with, and I referred to I put the link in here, so I'll send it out to you after where I got this from. So the first questions you ask, you look for an app and you say, okay, is it free or is it a low fee? Can my school pay for it, right? So that's one thing, because some of them are expensive, some of them are free. Free doesn't necessarily mean good. It might be full of advertising. Will it match up to my LMS in my school, my learning management system, or does it even have one? And is it easy to install? Because kids want to use it, it's got to be easy, right? Next, is it engaging? Does it show progress? Does it develop the 4 C's? So critical thinking, creativity. Does it increase in difficulty? Big thing that I notice with phonics apps, they don't get any more difficult. They just show you, but it doesn't get difficult. Kids need to be challenged to learn. And we know that challenge creates motivation. And how much content does it have? Is it content rich or not? So I made this, I'm going to look at 2 apps. Duolingo and Fun English. Now, I work for Studycat and we make Fun English, but I'm not saying it's the best, and I'm not here to say, I'm actually going to be quite honest about it, okay? But I want to show it to you because I think it's a really cool bit of tech you can use in your classrooms. So this is my rubric. We're going to rate out of 5 stars the gameplay, the stages and levels. Is there progress reporting? Are there rewards? Because rewards are motivating, right? Is there adaptive learning? Does it know what I'm getting wrong? And then does it try to get better? And help me get better, sorry. Does it develop the 4 C's? And is it content rich? And is it expensive or is it cheap, right? Because cheap doesn't mean good all the time, but it also means it's accessible. So let's look at Duolingo. Duolingo has, and some of you have used it, the activities are all multiple choice basically, or translate. And they're really simple and easy to use. They scaffold, so if we know about scaffolding in language learning, you know, here it starts with which one is cat, el gato, okay, I can see it's a picture, so it's very easy. The next time they might take the picture away, I've got to remember. The next time I've just got to hear it, right? So it sort of scaffolds up. Nice way to do the input. It's always quite active when you're learning. Another one example of this, they gradually increase in difficulty. So it's quite cool how it does that. The reason they use multiple choice is because it's good for data reporting. I think that Duolingo does a really good job at showing progress. It says, look how well you've done. You've got through this. You've got through this. This is what you need to get done to keep going. It's really good at helping you keep motivated to keep on your journey. I have to say that the gameplay is not very exciting, so you don't necessarily always want to go back, but it's pretty cool. It has voice recognition activities, which is great, so it does some judgments on that, and it gives you feedback on your pronunciation. And you have to do some translation. That means you've actually got it, right? So it's really checking and getting harder and harder as you go on. And it gives you these cool experience points, which makes you feel like, you know, I'm getting rewards and I want to keep getting. It's like a like on YouTube. We know now from YouTube and Facebook, getting a like is exciting for people, and they psychologically get excited by that. So Duolingo has taken that that method and try to embed it into them. So you get these little points if you do really well, and it's sort of like little excitement for you. So this is my rating. It's completely subjective, but I think it's nice for you when you're trying to choose an app for your school or your students, just to go through this quickly and see, you know, is it worth getting, or is it just another app that I'm getting because I wanted to get it? So in the gameplay in Duolingo, yeah, not great. It's just pick it. The stages and levels, 5 stars, awesome. Great progress reporting. I think that does really well. And then, you know, you need progress reporting to see if you want to keep learning. The rewards are okay. The adaptive learning is excellent. I should have given it 5 stars. It basically picks everything you're not doing well, keeps feeding it back to you. And you can't go through until you get it right. So it's constantly feeding back what you're getting wrong. It doesn't really develop 4 Cs, a little bit if you've got to think critically about what something might be, but that's about it. The variety of content's okay because, you know, there's sort of 3 different things. You can translate, pick a picture, or speak. There's not much language production. You do a little bit of speaking, but not much. But it's still cool, and it's super good value because it's free. And how cool is that? So I'm going to show you another app now. This is Fun English for Schools, something that you can all use in your classroom right now. I'm happy to share a trial if you would like to try it. So Fun English for Schools is available for kids to download, and it has an app and an LMS, so they feed on to each other. It has a lot of content. So that I think we do well. So we have a lot of games, dialogues, songs, spelling, phonics, quizzes, all in one place, which is exciting because you don't have to look around for, oh, what's in this textbook? I've got to find this game. It's all in one place. The gameplay is scaffolded, and a lot of them encourage some critical thinking, like comparing, contrasting. It has a very linear curriculum, so 3 levels, 24 units, and very simple rewards, which aren't great. So yeah, I admit that's not very good, and kids need some sort of more motivation. Our argument, though, would be that the gameplay is exciting enough. What is exciting, though, guys, and I really want to share this with you, is that you can, parents and teachers can track progress, so they can see what is the accuracy score that my child is getting, how many games have they played, how many hours was their total gameplay, and how many times how long do they play each day? So you can really see what the child is doing in the app as well. It also lets you see the last specific lexical items that you have worked on. So as a teacher, I go, okay, I've sent out my child some homework on the app, and I can see now, these are the 2 words I need to focus on. I need to focus on singing songs and watching movies. They're the ones my students aren't doing very well at, so I'm going to focus on that in my next class. It really saves time for your class. What I can also see is particular words. They've done really well with these phonemes. They haven't done very well with these 2, so I'm going to focus on these 2 in my next class, right? I'm not going to waste my time focusing on words they already know. The other thing that I can do is also see how my class is going overall. Now, I wouldn't share that with the parents, but what I can do from this app is see, oh, look, these guys are doing really well, so I'm going to group them together maybe, and these guys aren't doing well, I can group them together. Or I could group, you know, Mariella with Christina and have high and low together as well. Guys, what I'm trying to say with this is that it empowers you as a teacher so much more than a TV could, or a VHS. It's software that allows you to see much more about what's happening in your class. So yeah, I think that they do very, Fun English does very well for gameplay. Stages, not very good because it's quite linear, so everyone has to eventually be at the same pace. Good progress reporting, not very good rewards, not very good adaptive learning, very good at variety of content, and it's kind of good value for money. So, but if you'd like to have if you'd like a trial, I'll send out an email after this with this presentation. All you have to do is reply and say, I want a trial account, and you can have it. So I'm going to wrap up the last bit now with some benefits of EdTech, and then one last thing I do in the classroom, which I think is interesting. So we've seen technology so many times before, but what I'm really interested in is how do we provide learning opportunities before a class to increase interaction in a class, right? Which some people call the flipped classroom. What we can do now, oh yes, Helen. What we can do now, guys, is we can actually be increasing the amount of time children are exposed to language out of class. And it could be as simple as just play this app 10 minutes a day. It could be as simple as, just engaging with some sort of tech 5 or 10 minutes a day, which is much better than not studying and having that forgetting curve happen. It also allows that different students can learn at different paces. So I think some of the benefits of including apps and AR and all this in the classroom are it's engaging and motivating. It's what kids are using at home already, right? And then we don't want them to think, well, there's this big gap between my classroom is so out of date, but my house is so up to date. I want to feel like there's not a big gap between the two. It encourages self-learning, which is what we want. And my next session is much more practical than this one, but it's on learning to learn. What can you do in the classroom to help your kids learn on their own? It has data feedback. It means that we get data on learning, which means we can create better learning experiences for our kids. It connects schools and homes, so parents are now finally able to see what is happening, rather than you say, oh, you want to tell the parent how your child is doing, but you get 2 minutes to tell the parent. Now the parents can see every day. It's personalized learning, it's focusing on the kids, and it is increasing exposure. But what can you do right now? And I want to wrap up today with one thing that I do in my classes, which I think you can do right now for free with an app you're using right now. So if you have any social media, I do this on WeChat, but you could do it on WhatsApp, you can do it online. If you use Line, I don't know what else you guys use, Facebook or whatever it is. So what I do is at home, if I decide, just before I've got my class, maybe 2 or 3 days before, I send out a video with me saying something using the target language. So I just send a 20-second video. So for example, in this one, I just send, what are you doing yesterday? Well, sorry, what did you do yesterday? What did you do yesterday? I went to the shops and I saw a movie. Then I send that to the kids in my group with the parents, obviously the parents' phones, right? I don't send it directly to the kids, I send it to the parents. And then the kids, they can watch the video, but here's the point, and this is what software allows you to do. They can stop it, they can start it, they can watch it 20 times, they can turn it up, they can turn it down, they can do it however they want. Then they have a model that they want to use, and they have a correct model. Then they have to tell me what they did, and they record a video, right? They send it back to the group, and everyone can see what everyone else did on the weekend. It's a really nice collaborative activity. It's really nice at building a community and connections between your class. Then when we come to class, I just have to do dialogues, right? I can just do some nice collaborative activities. I can get rid of all the tech in the class and just focus on learning and having fun in the class production in the class, because they've already used the technology at home to learn. Now they can come to class and do something. So in class, they can ask each other what each person did. They can talk about different people. What did they do on the weekend, right? And then I can focus on accuracy in the class. It's a really simple one, but I'll send it out to you. So my point is that you use the tech your students already have, rather than trying to change and reinvent the wheel. Use what they already have. I mean, and this is it. I let my kids bring their iPads in. If they have an iPad, bring it in. Work collaboratively together. I put on the Fun English app and they have to do an activity together and they have to work it out together. And then, you know, they start to learn together. Yeah, I like that idea too, Alison. It works brilliantly. And the parents love it because they're using English at home, right? And that's what they want to see. They want to see their kids doing English at home. Yeah, and this is just, I mean, it's just, I don't think it's screen time is a big issue for parents, how long you spend on the screen. But what you tell the parents is, look, we only want them to spend 10 minutes a day. It's more valuable than just, like, I have a daughter and she wants to play My Little Pony. It's a kind of, I don't know, it's a game where there's a pony and they've got to do things. But my point is, I would rather her doing 10 minutes of Spanish than just doing 10 minutes of playing a silly My Little Pony game, even though it's actually quite fun. So guys, I went quite fast because the group was quite small and I think the interaction was a bit slow, but it was awesome to meet you all today. What I would like to do is, if you scan the QR code, you can go onto our website and see what's available. I'm going to send out this webinar content to you tonight. If you reply to me, I'm happy to give you a trial of our app, not just here to do marketing, but I'd love you to have a try and see what you think you can do in the classroom. And if you sign up to Studycat, we often have research on there. We have some really nice blog posts. We're really trying to share and build a community of teachers sharing good ideas across the world. And today was great. We had Russia, China, South Africa, and that's awesome. This morning we had Iran as well and some other countries. So if you have any questions, go for it. Otherwise, it was great to meet you all. And next week we have one on learning to learn, and it will be a lot more practical. This one was more about just getting some input and discussion. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate meeting you, and share with your friends. Yeah, we really want to build up a nice community of sharing across the world. We have teachers now in the Middle East, in Spain, all over the place. So South America is another big growing market for us. So yeah, I think the idea really is just getting people to share ideas across the world. And yeah. Cool. Thank you, guys. Thanks, Tamara. Thanks, Alison. Thanks, Helen. And all the other guys. There were other people here, but I think you guys were the most interactive. So Christopher,